Okay, good afternoon and welcome to our workshop. I'm Rupert Morgan and I'm a Gold Ambassador for Blaenau Gwent.
And I'm James Gardner and I'm a Gold Ambassador from Wrexham.
As the theme of this year's conference is leadership, we are going to introduce you to some of the young leaders that we have here in Wales. The Young Ambassador programme is thriving and creating new opportunities for young leaders from primary age to university students. Our workshop is going to take you through YA Wales background, which is basically where we all came from, the YA Leadership Continuum, which we will take you through the different levels and introduce you to our young ambassadors. We then have the impact YAs are having across Wales, so the differences that we are making within schools and communities. And then we have a panel Q&A session in which we will introduce you to experts to discuss how best to support our YAs to thrive.
Okay, so where did our Young Ambassador journey begin? The background of Young Ambassadors is from when the Singapore Promise. This is when Lord Coe said he wants to reach all young people around the world to connect them and with an inspirational power of sport. It was entitled in England in 2006, where it first took off. In 2009, the Young Ambassador movement moved across to Wales. Here it really took off within the first year, inspiring many young people to take up sport and become young ambassadors. What are our young ambassador outcomes? They are to increase participation and help healthy lifestyles, to promote positive values through sport and exercise, to be an ambassador and a role model for advocating PE, school and sports. This is to go out and be officials and help out general volunteers during sport. So this could be the person raking the sandpit to the person measuring how far the long jumpers jumped. Also to be an inspirational of major sporting events in schools and communities. For example, London 2012 and the Commonwealth Games in 2014. And the main one is to get every child hooked on sport for life.
Okay, so these are our current Young Ambassador pathways, which we will be going through in detail later. But one of the main factors that we wanted to show with this was no matter what stage you are on our pathway, you all have the same skills. And these skills can be the ability to influence and inspire young people and to be a good role model, the ability to manage and lead young people and young leaders as well, to have excellent communication skills with young people and adults, and then lastly, the ability to show initiative and take responsibility.
Okay, so how the Young YA programme has grown over the last few years. As you can see by the table, it shows that year on year it has grown to develop and produce more young ambassadors. And for example, when we first started, we only had 402 young ambassadors, but year on year it has grown, and just in the second year that over doubled, and we had 1,020 young ambassadors. So right here today, we've got 3,220 young ambassadors. This just shows how many people are actually being involved with sport and being an ambassador for local communities, clubs, schools. So that is quite a few YAs really, isn't it?
Okay, so now we're going to go through each of the pathways in detail, starting with, of course, the Bronze Ambassadors. At current time, we have over 1,000 Bronze Ambassadors in Wales today. What impact are they having, you may ask? So here's a couple on board right now, and this shows where Bronze Ambassadors make a difference. From being from Blaenau Gwent, I have personally been able to work with the Bronze Ambassadors within swimming, in which we have been able to allow them to support our coaches and to obviously gain experience within the sport from a coaching point of view. And then we have been able to put them into action by allowing them to do one-to-ones with the coach alongside them, of course, for support. and they are able to help younger members of that club and share their experience with them. I would like to introduce you to some of our bronze ambassadors.
Oh, come on. Do you
Good.
want to come up?
Hello, I'm Owain Williams. Hello, fy enw i yw Owain Williams a hwn yw Lydia Thomas. Ni yw llysganhedion chwaraeon Ysgol Gymunedol Peniel. Mae'n bleser fod yma i cyflwyno'r ffilm.
Hello, my name is Lydia Thomas and this is Owain Williams. We are young bronze sports ambassadors and we come from Ysgol Gymunedol Peniel in Carmarthenshire. We are honoured to be here today to introduce our video.
Okay, so the next step on the ladder for YAs is silver young ambassadors. So what impact are we having? These are the sort of people in your high schools that will go to every single after school activity and start helping out and want to get on the coaching ladder. It's the first step on the coaching ladder for them really. It's where they become young leaders and go on coaching courses such as like the Football Young Leaders Award and Tennis Young Leaders. Here are some figures from Anglesey. This table shows that there is an increasing number in participation in sport. For example, if you look at the dark blue, this shows on the number of children attending 30 sessions or more a year. The number grows quite significantly throughout the 3 years. It triples, in fact. There's also increasing number in girls' participation. I even noticed this when I was in high school. I can remember my first day in year 7, I'd go down to the PE at lunchtime and I wouldn't see anyone taking part and any girls really taking part in any extra curricular activities. But I remember my last day when I was in year 11, I'd go down to PE and there'd be girls Zumba going on, there'd be hula hooping, there's a wide array of activities, and that's only really within 5 years of me being in school. Okay, now I'd like to welcome up 2 silver ambassadors.
Hello, I'm Jessica Flynn.
I'm Tom.
And we're both silver ambassadors from Anglesey.
Yep.
And this is our video.
Okay, so next we have our gold ambassadors, in which we have around 130 in Wales at the moment. So what impact are they having? Since we haven't got on the screen, I'll read a couple off the PowerPoint here. And they include setting up community clubs, leading local YA conferences, which I have been able to do twice myself in Blaen y Gwent, once when it was my own conference and then later with the Silvers, which kind of goes in with delivering silver YA training sessions. And another one is winning local and national awards for coaching and volunteers. Okay, so in a moment when we're able to get the video up, we will introduce our gold ambassadors up. Okay, so if our gold ambassadors would like to come up.
Hiya, I'm Beth and I'm a gold ambassador from RCT. In the video it's me and Cameron and our platinum ambassador Philly, but unfortunately they can't be with us today due to exams and university holidays. So I'd like to introduce our video from RCT.
Okay, so the final step on our ladder is Platinum YAs. So what do Platinum YAs do? They are community chess panel members. They're real role models to the silver, gold ambassadors, and even bronze. Some platinums even go into primary schools and help out there, but they're mainly good ambassadors to silvers and golds. The platinum YAs are making decisions on the YA steering group, so I think they come down and meet in Cardiff 4 times a year to make key decisions about what they feel the YA movement needs to do and where they need to go next. They're mainly made up of university students, so these people have left school, college, and they've grown up with the YA system, and then they've gone on to the final one. Now I'd like to introduce Jamie up to the stage, who's a Platinum Young Ambassador.
Okay, so for those of you who missed it before, my name is Jamie Turley. I'm a Platinum Young Ambassador. I'm based up in North Wales. I do most of my Young Ambassador work in the county of Denbighshire, but I'm a second year student in Bangor University in Gwynedd as well. So most of my talking's in the video, but I'd just quickly like to thank Michael Kitchen, who's a Gold Young Ambassador in Denbighshire, who created this video for Sport Wales.
So who benefits from young ambassadors? Well, we do. We meet other young ambassadors, we network across Wales and go across and meet people we probably never meet before. We get training, mentoring, give evidence and experiences for future careers. So I want to become a PE teacher. It's been giving me great experiences and some I'll never forget. I've met people from all across the world even. It develops key skills: communication, problem solving, confidence, public speaking, like this really, and leadership.
Okay, so here are some of the benefits that our schools have from having young ambassadors. For example, we can impact on esteemed inspections and prove the learners have a voice within their schools. And we can also demonstrate the well-being of the pupils.
Our local communities benefit from it. We provide young people to go into the clubs, schools, coach to help and to provide support for coaches. We also run local community sports clubs in leisure centres. Sport leaders and young ambassadors can save the LA money as they are volunteers, so we're not getting paid for it. We get no financial reward from it, so we're really saving the local authorities money.
Okay, so national governing bodies of sport also use us to support them in recruiting and promoting their sports to young people.
So what next? Well, the next scheme that's coming up is Lead Your Generation. This is the next step on from London 2012. For London 2012 is Inspire Generation, that's Lead a Generation. This is keeping the buzz from the London 2012 going through to the Commonwealth Games. It's led by the Youth Sport Trust and is putting young people at the heart of delivering meaningful full legacy from the London 2012 Games. Young people in schools are being encouraged to put together legacy action plans to ensure the spirit and excitement surrounding last year's games continue to inspire a generation. We are also going to be promoting Glasgow 2014 and support the Queen's Baton Relay. This is a great opportunity for children that just go into their local schools and just help out to actually be involved with something great. I was actually lucky enough to carry the Queen's Baton Relay when it came around for Dali in 2008, I think 2010, whenever it was. I really enjoyed it. That's really bad, sorry. As you can see, there are many really exciting opportunities coming up, and we can use our leadership and skills to get young people active.
Okay, so finally, what are the challenges that we face? So some of the challenges that we face as young ambassadors is time commitments. It is very hard to balance your coaching, your ambassador roles and your schoolwork. So it is it's just finding that right balance more than anything, and it does take time to do that. They have support from schools and recognition from schools. I think they are quite similar points personally, and especially when I was doing the Young Leaders program going into the Young Ambassadors program, my school specifically didn't know anything about it. It was just like the PE teachers, and they didn't exactly know what the program specifically was about. So I think that is very important that we get schools more involved with this so they can support us as well. Okay, so coming from that, we are next going to have a question and answer panel to discuss how we can support our young ambassadors. So I'm going to introduce Carwyn Richards and Natalie Davis, who are our YA facilitators for this Q&A session. So come up, guys.
Yn gyntaf, ac yn I ddiolch I ddau hyn am y croeso. Fi'n mynd gyflwyno'n hynna chi'n gloi, Carwyn Richards I fi, fel wedon nhw. Eis i'r ysgol yn Llambed, sydd yn Sir Ceredigion. O'n i'n lusgenad safon air fyna, a wedyn symud yslan I fod yn Platinum. Fi nawr yn y brifysgol yn Bangor, newydd fenni'r blwyddyn gyntaf. Felly fi'n cael profiad o 2 wahanol sir, fel oedd Jamie'n gweud gyda Gwynedd a Denby fi yn Gwynedd a Ceredigion. Yn benodol, fi'n mwynhau chwarae hoci a rygbi. Fi'n gwneud llawer o beth eraill yn ogystal â chwaraeon a Young Ambassadors. Fi hefyd yn mwynhau mynd i'r clwb ffordd ifanc lleol a mwynhau cwrhan dyr aelwyd a dyr urdd. I fod yn onest, fi'n cael ei fel llysgynad yn ifanc, fi'n tueddu mynd â chwaraeon I bob man i'n mynd mewn bywyd. So os ni'n cymryd rhan mewn yn yr aelwyd neu clwb y ffordd ifanc, fi'n cael ei bod ni'n mynd â chwaraeon gyda ni bob man. Chi'n lwcus heddi achos mae'r ddwy o ni wedi cario'r dorch Olympaidd, so os unrhyw moyn llun neu moyn rhywbeth I wneud ar ffagl Olympaidd, cofiwch chi'n gwybod o'n ni, allan ni wastad dod nhw I ysgolion neu rhywbeth. A nawr fi'n caru bydd Natalie yn cyflwyno hynna fyd.
Hello, I'm Natalie Davis. I'm from Maesteg and I'm a Platinum Young Ambassador. I'm on the YA steering group with Carwyn. I've just finished studying dance in Neath Patel College, going to university in September to carry on my studying of dance. I have my own dance group called Funk Force, and we current under 18 intermediate British champions at the moment. As Karen said, I carry the Olympic torch for my work being a young ambassador, and I'm the new YA coordinator for Bridgend.
Ni nawr yn mynd I gyflwyno panel o 5 o bobl I chi. Mae dyn ni Molly Briscom sy'n lysgenad ifanc, Julia Longville, Sport Wales board member, Janet Waldron, sy'n bennaeth ar ysgol, John Ellis, oedd Jamie wedi siarad am beth I fe gyda, 560/P teacher / Young Ambassador coordinator, a wedyn Deborah Backer o Hockey Cymru. So if you could all come up to the stage, please.
Hi, I'm Molly Davis Briscom. I'm from Pontarddulais Comprehensive School and I'm a Gold Young Ambassador. I can't really think of a highlight, there's been loads, so I can't think of one.
Julia Longville?
I'm Julia Longville. I'm a senior lecturer at Cardiff Metropolitan University, and I guess my first involvement with the Young Ambassador scheme was when I became a board member.
Janet Waldron?
I'm Janet Waldron, a head teacher at Pontarddulais Comprehensive School. Molly's my pupil. And I'd never heard of Young Ambassador until Molly came to me a year ago. Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a year ago, yeah.
When she was in year 10 and talked me through what a Young Ambassador was.
Good, my name's John Ellis. I'm a PE teacher at Preston High School in Denbighshire. I also juggle that role with a 5-6 officer role, and with that and my leisure commitments, I coordinate the Denbighshire team in the AYP team and the Young Ambassadors in particular. I had experience of the Young Ambassador role in England prior to teaching over the border, and then really that kicked off as I moved across, and I'm pleased to say today that the programme in Wales far exceeded my experiences across.
I'm Deborah Barker, North Wales Regional Manager for Hockey Wales, and I first got involved with the Young Ambassadors when I worked for Powys County Council, and I was the Young Ambassador lead for that local authority. So I'm quite pleased now that I've moved over into Hockey Wales and have been able to drive forward the development of the Young Ambassadors programme with Sport Wales from an NGB point of view.
Okay,
Okay, if you'd all like to think of a question you might want to ask the panel, I'll kickstart it. So it just goes across to all of you where everyone stands first. What type of support do you offer to support young ambassadors in their roles?
Do you want me to kick off?
Kickstart.
Okay then. Our Young Ambassador programme is really very new as a national governing body. We only launched it back in March. So we currently have in North Wales a youth development panel which is led by our young ambassadors. And the support that we give them is training in hockey specific stuff, and then we try and link with the local authorities so we're not reinventing the wheel. And it's about trying to give them more leadership skills, particularly in hockey, and longer term our vision is to give them a link hopefully to a national hockey young ambassadors board and link to the European Hockey Federation and International Hockey Federation is our longer term aspiration.
I think from a Sport Wales board perspective, as Jamie's already said, there are opportunities for young ambassadors to become involved with the work of the board, and Jamie is on our strategic advisory group now, is contributing very well in terms of representing the young people of Wales. The board actually really does value the work of the young ambassadors, and we regularly invite young ambassadors to our meetings to share with us the work that they do across the Principality.
For me, it's probably the day-to-day on the work floor, on the shop floor, that relationship that we build with these inspirational young people. We recognise that they are a passionate and committed workforce that we, as partners in Sport in Wales, we need to be embracing them and using them as tools for seeing the legacy come to life. So how do we support them? We support them in many ways, whether that's advising, guiding, encouraging, being a mentor in many ways, just supporting them in the multifaceted way that is, and just really, again, it's that relationship, and that's built over time that's invested, but the great thing for me is you see that reward. We've seen so many young people who are now moving through the Young Ambassador movement, and we're seeing the fruit of all their hard work. And okay, each of us and all of us here have a role to play in supporting their great work, and it's really rewarding that we see that come to life with all the great stuff that they're doing. So, multifaceted really of what we give and what we receive by supporting the YAs.
For me, it's just being there for the younger young ambassadors in the local authority and in the school. Just on the way up, me and Miss Waldron were talking about who we think should be the next young ambassadors for our school. So it's just being there and giving them a little bit of the tricks of the trade and stuff like that.
For a head teacher in a school, it's a partnership. So it's a partnership between pupils and the staff. We use Molly and the young ambassadors as often as we can and provide opportunities for them to do things that we want to improve the school with. So if we want something to happen in school, and it can range from interviewing new appointments for staff, it can be building things that happen in the community, we can turn to our young ambassadors, and I will say it's not just sport, it's absolutely anything at all. So although we say our young ambassadors are really focused on sport, in actual fact it's all school life, and it's probably the same for everybody sitting here. You're probably just not looking at one eye just at sport. I can imagine that you contribute to all aspects of school life. And to have a young ambassador who's as committed as Molly in the schools opened my eyes to what pupils can do, but also extended it out now. So it's a combination. I give them time in so much as anybody can come and talk to me at any time about different things. The young ambassadors come to me and have meetings and discuss what issues they want to talk about, what they want to develop in the school. And then from there on, if I think then they can take initiatives forward, they can do. But if I also want them to move things forward in the school, I ask them as well. So very much a partnership.
Thank you. Os ydyn nhw gwestiynau gyda chi fel gynulleidfa? Ie, cwestiwn there.
As a PE teacher, so we've got two questions to ask. The first one is, do you have any kind of assurance or commitment from the Welsh Assembly Government that the funding for 560 and the Young Ambassador Scheme is going to continue? Because as an old PE teacher, initially when the 560 officers came in, I think a lot of us were quite suspicious or sceptical as to, we felt a bit threatened by it. However, now the programme is running and it's fantastic. As you say, it's a partnership. We'll work as a team, and the programmes of activities that we can run out is fantastic with the young ambassadors. However, I do feel that if the funding was to be cut, if that was suddenly to end, there'd be a huge gap, because now that those clubs have been it's being run by the Young Ambassadors Centre, and whilst the Young Ambassadors aren't actually maybe directly funded, it's the 560 officers that do coordinate them and motivate them and work alongside the P departments and the management schools. So do you have a commitment for the funding? Or do you know if there's a commitment?
Maybe if we start with Molly as a young ambassador, how do you feel? Do you need funding as a young ambassador? What do you feel?
I don't think so. I think that the Young Ambassador scheme was meant to be something that's sustainable, to make something sustainable for our younger generation. And with the 560 officers, although they're obviously there to help you a lot of the time, there's been a lot of stuff that I've done without them, like within the school, and there's been lots that I've done without them. So although they're there to support you, you don't have to have them there at every single point. They're lovely to have that to support you whenever you do have a tricky patch or whatever. But at the same time, you can have support from your PE teachers and everything when they're not there. So I don't think we need too much funding.
From my perspective, I'm not aware of where the funding comes from, but if you think about what happens within school, we've always had young ambassadors for sport within schools, even before they had the T-shirts and the organisation. So this has given us another layer, if you like, that we can say, okay, we can now look for, as well as pupil governors, as well as school council and year group council, we can now have a team of young ambassadors for sport within the school. But if there's funding from outside to give them recognition, I don't think young people have enough recognition for the excellent things they're doing, and for funding to carry on and to keep on ploughing into raising the profile of what excellent things you people can do. I think that's really important.
I can see where the question comes from and the possible threat that a lack of funding could have to a movement that's offering so much to the young people and to sport in Wales, and I share your concerns. But for me, the biggest argument for the keeping of funding and the maintaining of funding is sat on the front row in front of us, and you've seen the cream of the crop today, and they're just a small snapshot of what we have across our sporting nation. So I think they're fighting the corner, and now they're fighting in positions of strength, from being on an advisory group to sitting and having a close working relationship with Sport Wales. You know, I'm confident that my concerns about the future and funding are being represented by the best type of people. You know, I could stand and argue the case for maintaining funding, but I know by just about who these guys are and what they do on a day-to-day, session-by-session, basis out in the communities across the counties of Wales. You know, they're the greatest example of saying, do we really want to not support these with the finance that's needed so that they can keep doing what they're doing so effectively? And I think that's the key, really. These guys work in schools, they connect the primary schools, they're great for transition and maintaining that bridge. But look at the community sports strategy, and you can see that these guys contribute so well to so much of that. And if Sport Wales are committed to community sport, I see they're as committed to young ambassadors because they're key partners in that strategy.
And I guess from a Sport Wales board perspective, it would be remiss of us not to support a group such as Young Ambassadors. I do understand that, obviously things change, there's no guarantee, but I think we need to be mindful of the task force report that Laura mentioned this morning. So although funding might change, or the way that it's allocated might change, the hope is, and I don't know the answer to this, I don't know what that report looks like at this stage, we all will next week, but the hope is that we will continue to maintain and sustain the initiatives in Wales that are having the biggest impact. Monitoring evaluation was talked about this morning, and by a number of different people. It's really important for us to continue to do that, to really show how successful some of our initiatives are, and where there are gaps, not just plug those gaps, but make sure that we put money in the right place. And I don't think anybody can argue. I've been on the board since last September, and I can honestly say that the Young Ambassador Scheme is the one that I think has featured more often than not in any meetings I've been to, any committees I've sat on, and certainly in terms of facilitating this conference today. So I can't see that's not going to continue.
Yeah, from a national governing body point of view, we don't rely on the 560 officers as the schools programme does. And the way that we're looking to try and set it up is, as Molly said, in a sustainable way. So at the forefront of our mind is always the question, what if there isn't any money? And I think that's what the Young Ambassadors programme is all about. It's about creating that long-lasting legacy of volunteers. From a national governing point of body's point of view, we rely heavily on our volunteers. So I think it's important that we can keep bringing the young ambassadors through from a young age and make sure that that everybody that's working in the Young Ambassador programme has got that sustainable planning and point of view towards it. So if ever funding is cut or there's no money available, the Young Ambassadors programme can continue, because volunteers is what we're going to rely on in the future as funding starts to be cut. And I think the Young Ambassadors are the future of our sports.
Just to add on one essence that's come out there really is that essence of partnership working, and it doesn't matter who we represent here today. There are different partnership groups that all contribute to the same aim, and we've heard that this morning. And maybe one example of where we're seeing the Young Ambassadors working as a strength is where we're seeing the local AYP teams, the national governing bodies, and then the PE departments and the Young Ambassadors, the community sports clubs, all starting to pull in the same direction. Instead of going off at a tangent on different angles with different focuses, starting to come together and unite, and then see us using the workforce that I've already said we've got that are so capable, and pulling together to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I think from past experience as well, I've seen that the importance of teachers and lecturers supporting the Young Ambassador scheme is really important. Like, I just finished studying in college and they didn't understand what the Ambassador scheme is about. They didn't know nothing, and therefore I didn't have the support to come to conferences. They didn't want to give me the days off because they didn't know what it was about. They didn't really want to know about what I was doing. In regards to my local authority, it really supported me all the way, and when I was in school I had the push to keep coming to the conferences and doing all the clubs and things in school. So it is really important that all teachers and everyone knows what the Young Ambassador scheme is about, but I think now time's gone on, everyone is starting to know what it's about and its legacy, whereas a few years ago, because it was new to Wales, nobody really understood it. Is there any other questions for you?
So I work with national governing bodies of sports within Sport Wales, and quite a few of the sports that I work with, they're always saying how can we tap into young ambassadors more and how can we work with them more, and have you got any sort of tips or ideas? Obviously it's great to have hockey's example of what hockey's doing, but what do national governing bodies need to be doing to work better and utilise your skills better? Big question for Molly.
Well, I would just say get in touch with the Young Ambassadors on a one-to-one basis. Whenever Emma gets hold of me, I know that having Emma as the link up here in Sport Wales has been brilliant, because whereas before it was only coming up here if the local authority knew, and there was only certain things that the local authority would know about. Whereas with Emma now, there's always something to do and there's always coming up here. So I would definitely say just get in touch with them by email, anything, and they'll jump at you probably. Like I jump at Emma whenever she has an opportunity for me. So definitely.
My impression is that the Sport Wales representatives that support the Young Ambassadors operates very, very effectively and efficiently. And perhaps there's work to be done there to maybe link up governing bodies, young ambassadors, through maybe that Sport Wales triangle.
What we were, just from an NGB point of view, we were keen to get involved in the Young Ambassadors programme and not do it in isolation. So the first thing we did was make sure that we met with Richard and then Emma later down the line to make sure that we knew what the local authorities were doing and vice versa, so that we're not duplicating work. So as John said, it's about a partnership approach. So the local authorities all know that hockey are involved in the Young Ambassadors programme. There's opportunities for young ambassadors in hockey, and then vice versa within the local authorities. So I think it's important for the NGBs to link up with the local authorities and not work in isolation.
Any more questions? Just to remind you of the main topic, the importance of supporting young ambassadors to undertake their roles. Is there a question?
Yeah, I got one back here if I can. Rob Guy from Sports Leaders UK. So basically, I think the 560 officers and the PE teachers know all about young ambassadors and sports leaders. And I think, give an example with Natalie, who can't see past the pillar, but Natalie, your lecturers in your college didn't know until I tweeted them to say that you were a Gold Young Ambassador and you've been speaking in the Sport Wales conference, and they didn't even know that. And I think the issue for me is that we've got lots of primary heads, secondary heads, and they don't necessarily realise what fantastic work is being done by young people. And tends to be the primary and secondary heads don't come to conferences like this either. So how do we get that message across? Because I think what happens is the PE teacher or the 5-60 officer goes to the head teacher, and the head teacher doesn't know so much about it. So then it's it's not such an easy job to get things developed.
As a head teacher, maybe do you have any advice for?
Well, I've always loved sport. Past pupil sitting there. Cocky, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
You're an amazing goalkeeper. And my family's always been involved with sport. So when Molly came and talked to me about the role, it just seemed like a fantastic opportunity to take forward as a school. But I didn't know anything about it until until Molly came and talked to me about that. And I was the PE teacher, brought her in, sat her down, and left her be. And so I found out about it. We just don't know about what's happening with youth ambassadors. It's not.
How do we get the message to you?
The message can come through secondary head groups. SCASH in Swansea. I know there's a secondary head group in Neath Talbot. So there are secondary head groups that can be accessed. And there are also primary head teacher groups that can be accessed. Quite easy. It's not difficult. You just get in touch with the chair of that group and ask if somebody can speak. Preferably youth ambassadors themselves, because they are the best at persuading people like me that it's a really good idea to develop it further. And really for schools, that is the best forum, because that's when people will listen.
Jan, based on that, how much communication do you have with other heads in Swansea then to
Well,
share that message across, through your own peers?
I can put it on the agenda of the meeting and discuss it, but for me to do it, it would have a limited impact. It would have far greater impact if, for example, Molly came along and talked about it, because then they would listen. Especially when you look at what the impact is, because head teachers really want to know what the impact is on the learning of people like Molly coming into school, and they want to see whether or not it's going to have an impact on their English, maths and science grades, whether or not it's going to have an impact on their point scores, because that's what we are judged on. So if we are looking at what the impact is of our young ambassador in our school, I could write a list of what Molly has done and what the impact is on my school on raising aspirational targets for pupils, on different pupils, the confidence that they have just by being a young ambassador, but then also the participation in sport, which brings pupils more into enjoying school. Our attendance levels in school are really high because they enjoy coming, they enjoy being part of activities like sporting activities, and I think it's that impact which will actually make head teachers sit up and think, okay, I might want to be a part of this.
Did you say we just had Eston, went through Eston?
Do I sound like an Eston inspector?
No, it was the data from the Sports Wales survey and the active markets on which our Golden Ambassadors and our 560 officers were crucial in inputting to and helping us to achieve the active market. So on Golden Ambassadors, every time we have people to the school, as well as the head boy and head girl, they'll show everybody around, but the head teachers are really interested in the data. They'd had the data from the Sports Wales survey, but they hadn't really looked at it. And then when it came to self-evaluation and so on, and preparing for inspection, then they were really interested in it. It was the Golden Ambassadors with the 560 officer himself would go along and present that, and head teachers are interested in that.
I'd just further encourage exactly what's been said there as an answer, Rob. As with anything, whether it's looking at the relationship with head teachers and the impact through accessing head teachers, it's all about opportunity. And for me, the more these guys have been given opportunity, the more they've proved themselves to be more than capable of making an impact, whether it's at the highest level that we're talking about or whether it's on a school-based level. And really good example there with the active mark that we can say, and Jamie here was part of the process with Prestatyn High achieving active mark. And now with the school sports survey, I talk again about my school. We place young ambassadors right at the centre of getting that out to the pupils. The head teachers are obviously aware that these guys are working on the floor, and they are the pupil voice. Okay? And if we look at what Estin and the inspection guidelines and all the categories, these guys are making contributions. So therefore I completely support what Rob's saying. We need to find the avenue, okay, of making contact, showcasing their work with the people who need to know. And it's great to have so many of you here today to hear that message, and I'm sure you'll leave enthused by their work. I'd then encourage you to spread that impact. And if you see an opportunity where these guys can come and showcase what they're doing on behalf of Sport Wales across the nation, then let's give them the opportunity, because they take it and they run with it and they make such a great job of what they do.
On that note then, I'm afraid we're running out of time, I think, but I'm sure if you find any of these in the panel downstairs or whatever during the afternoon, I'm sure they won't mind having a quick chat with you. Do you have any other comments you want to say before you leave? So,
a bit of time.
you have got a bit of time?
Just want to congratulate everybody, the ambassadors, the work that you do. But being a development officer of extreme sports, which are out the mainstream, which we get many pupils coming to us in my school ignoring me, they don't care what I do. What is the future of the ambassadors encouraging the pupil who wants to take the sport up of their choice, yeah, and developing that pupil through a sport that they may develop to be champions of the future? No matter what it is, it could be skateboarding, it could be snowboarding, or in my case, motorcycling. We have got a lot of achievement in Wales of these extreme sports. What is your future looking at helping pupils to get involved with governing bodies outside the mainstream of sports?
I think it goes back really to Rob's point about, we've got to do something nationally in getting the message out there. We've got to make sure that head teachers understand the impact that sport can have on young people. And I think the young people here today, regardless of what that sport might be, extreme or otherwise, it's about educating the leaders and managers who oversee the work of young people in schools. At the end of the day, young people are the clients of schools. And we need to make sure that those young people are accessing the right sort of menu, the right sort of activities, be that in sport or other aspects of the curriculum. And I think the big thing that's come through for me with this particular scheme is that this is the voice. Pupil voice is huge in schools now, and this Young Ambassador scheme is a fantastic model of good practice. So what we've got to do is demonstrate where it's happening well, and really show head teachers that if your school's not engaged with this, and if your school is not listening to young people about perhaps what they want to do and the avenues they need to take in order to be able to do that, we need to do something. You're missing out. Your school is missing out. Your school, is not going to have the profile that other schools have got, like Janet's, where it's very high profile. So I think there's something that we need to do nationally.
And just to add to that, while you're talking about the extreme sports and stuff that isn't mainstream, how we can, just us young ambassadors can definitely do something about it. I'd had a few comments from our STF unit in school earlier in the year that they didn't have their own, any sports club of their own. And with the young ambassadors, I'd earlier on in the year done a disability inclusion course in which we learn about boccia. I don't know if you're aware what boccia is, but it's a Paralympic sport. So I got in touch with Paralympian boccia player David Smith. He came to the school and did a demonstration for them and a question and answer session. He just taught them everything. And as a result of that, they've got their own club. And things like that can be done with any kind of sport. And if they can do it with a sport like boccia, you can do it with anything.
So would you welcome ambassador from that governing body to be on your...
Pardon?
If we had our own ambassador, we've got our own ambassadors,
yeah.
Obviously youth ambassadors, to encourage youth sport, would you welcome those ambassadors on
Yeah, definitely.
Again, just to kind of link the comments that have been made together with another real-life example, again, it's that voice, accessing the voice. It sounds like you want to get to the young people of the communities and use that fresh face of which they are. Yeah. They know the way that young people want to be communicated. They know the opportunities, they know the barriers, they know the things that are going to appeal to them. So that's why we use them so, as much as we can to reach the younger people, because they know younger people better than what I do and what we do. Unfortunately, that's the nature of it, the way it is. They're great at signposting. Emma and the team provide lots of opportunities, and they encourage and signpost people, whether it's on a day by day what sessions sports are happening, or whether it's opportunities to volunteer and to go and help promote something. Next week, Prestatyn High, our young ambassadors have taken it upon themselves and they've organised an untraditional sports day because they wanted to raise the profile of sporting opportunities that young people don't often get. Okay, so they've done some work themselves, they've gone out into the community, they've made some contacts, and they've brought providers in to provide taster sessions for something like you're trying to suggest. Now, you take away that young ambassador, and I just question how much of those type of events and activities we can put on for more young people to access more sporting opportunities.
Are there any more questions? everything. Well, on that note then, can I, on behalf of all young ambassadors, thank you all on the panel for your discussions, everyone for asking questions and for listening so carefully, and Natalie for standing next to me. So on that note, I hope you all enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you very much.